Hi friends, this is Bilal Heather, and today we are learning about constants and what are constants and how can we use them in our JavaScript programs. So first of all, let's talk about what is a constant. A constant is basically a value that never changes, okay? Which we humans actually define those values, and we just believe that they are what they are. So l- let's start with the numbers, okay? So let's say we want to use numbers in our program. So let's say we want a zero in our program. So what is a zero? Zero is actually a constant value, and um, because it never changes, zero remains zero forever, right? So let's now see what are different kind of numbers we can use in JavaScript programs. So the first kind of numbers are basically whole numbers, or 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and these are called whole numbers, and you can actually use them in your JavaScript programs. You can just, if you want to use them, you can just type 45, or you type 89, or you can type whatever, 10. So these are basically positive numbers, and we can also use negative numbers in our programs. So we can use negative 10, we can use negative 96, we can use negative 50. So numbers are basically constant values, and we can use them in our JavaScript programs. So alongside numbers, we also have floating point numbers. So we can do 1.01 or 1.05. So these are floating point numbers, and they are also constant values. And that means is, if you're telling your JavaScript program that I want to use 1.05, this number in my program, JavaScript guarantees that it will be 1.5, 1.05. Okay, it's not going to change. Like, let's say you typed 1.05 in your program, and later on, if 1.05 is not 1.05, then it's useless basically. So that is why it is a constant and it never changes. So what are other constant values? So we also have characters. So if I type single quotes like that and put a C in it, that means it is a character constant. That means I can use this C anywhere in my program and it will not change. So it's also a constant value. Then we have text. So I can type hello world, like you have seen in my past example when I did console.log um, hello world, right? So this is a constant value, and it's called a string of characters basically. So whenever we use strings or characters in our program, we need to put them in either single quotes like this, hello world, or we need to put them in double quotes like this, hello world, or we can also put them in backticks, and this is very useful. We'll see how later on, but for now you can remember that whenever we want to use strings or text in our program, we can put them in single quotes, double quotes, or backticks. So um, so these are three different type of constants that we have in JavaScript. And let's go back to numbers for a moment. So There is another way to write numbers, big numbers, and that is using something called exponential or e. So I will write a number in here and then I will tell you what I mean. So I'm writing 1.6 e plus 10. So it looks weird, right? 1.6 e plus 10, but it is a number, and it is if I save it and run the code, you'll see what this number is. So this number is actually 16 billion, right? So if we want to deal with big numbers like this 16 billion, it's good idea to use this notation to write these big numbers, because if you're writing a big number like this in your program, and okay, let's say, okay, someone says to me that make a program that has 15 billion number in it. So you're saying, okay, 15, oh, how many zeros are there in a billion? Then you go to Google and you search how many zeros there, and you type like this, and then you count, oh, this is one, this is two. it's it basically is a pain. So it's easier for me to write 16e plus 10, sorry, 1.6 e plus 10, and it is 16 billion. That way it is easier for me to deal with this number, right? Easy to write, easy for me to write it down there. So that's pretty much it about constant values. So we learned what are numbers. We learned about how we can write negative numbers. We understood how we can write floating point numbers, the numbers which carry a floating point within them. We also talked about how we can write character constants. We talked about how can we write text, or basically string of characters. So this was pretty much all for now about constants, and in the next part we will actually start learning about variables, and we'll learn how can we store these constant values in a variable, and change that variable later on if we want to in our programs. So this is pretty much all for this part. I will see you in the next part.